welcome to a special edition of Money Talk. Money Talk brought to you by NuMark Credit Union. Normally we bring you a program that airs for about 20-25 minutes or so, but today we are going to extend into the next half hour because we're going to be talking to someone who's got an amazing story, a Vietnam veteran and Purple Heart recipient, and a board member for NuMark Credit Union and a graphics coordinator for NuMark Credit Union as well. We do want to remind you that at the end of the program, we're going to tell you about the Honor Wall, where you can visit NuMarkCU.org to learn more. That's NuMarkCU.org, NuMark Credit Union, where you are family. Well, we are very happy to have live in our WJL studios. We'll introduce Matt first. He is with NuMark Credit Union. Matt, thank you very much for coming in this morning. We appreciate it. And if you would, kind of give us an overview of what today's show is going to be all about. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning, Scott. Today I want to introduce Vietnam veteran and board member at NuMark Credit Union, Wally Chlipala. And I want to also introduce George Sternisha, who is another Vietnam War veteran, but also he has an amazing story today for us about his uncle who was killed during the attack on Pearl Harbor. So I don't want to, without further ado, I don't want to take up too much time.
That's fine, Daddy. Wally, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning,
we talk
Scott.
to you once a year around this time.
Yeah, we talk Wreaths Across America.
That's right.
We come in November, and because we promote that at the credit union. Been doing that for probably 10 years now.
Yeah.
Participating in that. But this has a special meaning because this one is unique to Memorial Day, and it has a different theme, and it'll be a great story.
Right.
So hang around if you have an opportunity out there. Hang around.
This one's for real, right?
This one is it is a great one.
Wally, talk to your service just a little bit. What was your role in the armed forces?
I was drafted. Uncle Sam says, "Come on, join us," and I did. And I 69 and 70, and of the time I spent 13 months in Vietnam, and I was very fortunate. I came home without issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a brotherhood.
Yeah. It absolutely is, and we're going to get into why as we go along. George Ternisha is here. He's a Marine veteran, Purple Heart recipient. George, welcome to WJL Radio. It's good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Scott, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So tell us, and we'll get into more detail about the Purple Heart and everything else, but generally speaking, your service, you served in what branch of the armed forces?
I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in January 1966. I did my boot camp at San Diego and training at Camp Pendleton. I got to Vietnam in September 1966, and I joined Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, which was later designated as Battalion Landing Team 2-3. On May 3rd, 1967, I was on Hill 881 North up at Khe Sanh, and I was wounded in the hands by a mortar round. When I got back to the States, I finished my tour at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Okay. And you're here with us today, and thank you very much. Thank you both for your service. Wally, Memorial Day is coming up. The true meaning or purpose behind Memorial Day seems to have gotten lost over the years.
Yeah, Memorial Day actually was known as, many of us remember it as Decoration Day.
Mm-hmm.
It was Decoration Day. And it was actually brought online right after the Civil War when soldiers would go to decorate the graves of the fallen, of their comrades that were fallen. And over the years, many years, World War I all the way through, it was always known as Decoration Day. And it was always May 30th. That was the specific day. It wasn't a weekend. It was May 30th, where families and veterans would go out and of those that were fallen and decorate, put flags or flowers on their graves. In 1971, Congress decided to move Decoration Day, Memorial Day, to the last Monday in May.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we have the Memorial Weekend. And over time, Memorial Weekend has been misinterpreted as, thanks to all veterans, et cetera. But in reality, it is about the fallen, those that have given their lives.
Right.
our Veteran Day is in November. That's Armistice Day, November 11th.
Mm-hmm.
That's for all veterans who have served. But Memorial Day specifically is Decoration Day. But since they moved it, we now have Memorial mattress sales, and
I know.
And if you ask people about it, they're confused about it. They thank you for your service, etc. I get emails, from people that know that I've served, and I go, thank you very much, but that's not the true meaning. And what we're trying to do here today is to re-emphasize what Memorial Day is all about. And this year, Memorial Day actually is May 30th.
Yeah.
Which would have been Decoration Day.
That's right.
So
They will be decorating up the Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, though.
Yes, we will.
Yeah,
yes,
that's great. And we'll talk a little bit more about that if we have time later on. Okay. Wally?
Yeah.
Let's talk about, let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's go ahead and jump into Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery. We talked to Dennis Gorin earlier this week.
Yes.
Dennis, one of the guys that helps organize this whole thing. 55,000 flags this year.
Yes.
55,000.
As a matter of fact, I spoke to Christine in the office yesterday. I stopped by and spoke to her. Yes, there are currently 67,000 veterans out there right now, but not all will be decorated because the columbariums get flags in a different way. But all the grounds, all the monuments and those, they get a flag placed. Now the Friday at 9:00. Everybody out there that's listening to us, please come out there. The ground's going to be soft. We're getting a lot of rain, so putting the flags in the ground this time is going to be pretty.
A piece of cake.
A piece of cake. We've been out there before. We almost had to bring a drill and drill the ground, But no, we're forecasting rain, or Monica say we're going to have 16 hours of rain. That'll be excellent. But Monday, 9:00, meet at the flagpole. This coming Friday,
Right.
Meet at the flagpole, and then the other half of that is we got to come back Tuesday morning at 8:30.
Pick them up.
And pick them all up. Pick all 55,000 flags up. And that is a little bit less structured. You just show up. There's some tables around with rubber bands. You bundle them in 25s, and you take them over to the pallet skids, and you place them in the containers. The defective ones you leave off to the side because there's ones that get damaged placing and stuff. But they really need the help. They need the help placing that many flags. And every year is a stretch goal because there's more and more veterans being placed. So it's one of those things where, like, boy, we got them this year. And talking to Christine, she was so happy to see the non-COVID placing of flags this year because the volunteers have been reduced. Because of that.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we can get out there, that'd be great.
All right, show up by 8:30, 9:00. 8:30 will be a little informational session, and then 9:00 you start to hit it.
Right, and they will give you the guidance on how to do it and where to go. They'll have it organized depending on the amount of volunteers.
And don't park on the grass.
Oh, don't park on the grass. Yes, no.
That's the big thing, right? Don't park on the grass.
Exactly.
All right, let's get to our guest here. Now, you brought a special guest, Wally. How did you come to meet George Sternisha and learn about his uncle?
Okay, I'm going to try to get through this real quick. Back in 2017, my wife and I, Liz, we were removing flags on Flags Out. Okay, flags in on Friday, flags out on Tuesday. And we got done with our section. We went over to section 10, and that's where his uncle's at, over in section 10. And there's just removing it. And when you remove a flag, you kind of look at the monument, see who, the name, etc. I reached down, grabbed the flag, and at the bottom of the monument, I see KIA USS Oklahoma. Okay? You see that, and the first thing you think, KIA killed in action, USS Oklahoma. Wait a minute, Oklahoma is Pearl Harbor. I glanced up further in, and then you see the date, December 7th, 1941. So now I'm like, how does his Uncle Mike get to Abraham Lincoln that didn't come online until 1999?
Right.
Okay, so how does somebody who was killed in action 1941 end up out at Abraham Lincoln? Well, for a few years it bothered me. Last month, Carrie Enders, Carrie, she's our vice president. I says, Carrie, is there some way we can mention about Abraham Lincoln, putting the flags and everything? She says, yeah, one of our previous shows, not this special one. She says, yeah. Then I said, but what I'd like to do, I'd like to find, it's not been bothering me, but there's this monument out there. There's this, the sailor that's interned out there was killed at Pearl Harbor. If I could find the backstory to that.
Yeah.
Well, that's George. I was able to find George,
and he's got the story.
And he's, yes. And I was worried that when I called George, I finally got his phone number, that he was thinking I was a spammer or something, or one of these guys going to, get him out of money. But no, he returned the call, and we spoke for a long time, and I just want you to now it's George's turn.
Okay.
Let's get to the story.
George, thank you again. So let's talk about your uncle, Michael Galajdik.
Yes, he was one of 5 siblings. Their mother died. My grandma died at age 50, so my mother raised my uncle since he was 13 years old. And when he became old enough, he joined the WPA. And then when he turned 20 or 22, I want to say he enlisted in the Navy in 1940.
Mm-hmm. So that's how it all got started. But let's talk about how, first and foremost, how your uncle died on December 7th, 1941.
Okay, he was on the USS Oklahoma, and the Oklahoma was the first ship and sunk at Pearl Harbor. It was sitting on the outboard of the Maryland, and it took 6 torpedoes. The Oklahoma had the second most loss of lives after the Arizona.
So he was there, and
There's also a cover for
what we've find out as history has gone on is, and there's been several movies about it, several documentaries about it, George, but to find out how this happened, how obviously it was a surprise attack, obviously, we maybe could have done a better job realizing that something was coming our way, but literally attack on our own soil for the first time ever, other than the revolutionary, or back to some of the early days before our country was even formed.
Yes, that's true.
So he was buried at Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery 76 years later. So where was he buried prior to that?
Okay, what they did, Scott, after the initial bombing, they removed the sailors and Marines off of the ships. And what they did is they dug graves, but what they did is they marked these here trenches with the name of the ship that the sailors came from.
Okay.
And they were all buried together and mingled.
Okay.
And from there, they were dug up again and removed. I believe they were dug up 3 times before they were finally buried at the Punch Bowl.
Oh my gosh! Now what is the Punch Bowl? What is that?
The Punch Bowl is a national cemetery out there in Hawaii, where all the servicemen were buried.
So your uncle Michael was killed in the Oklahoma and then buried and dug up 3 different times?
That's correct. The last time that he was dug up is when they started trying to identify the remains with dental records and DNA.
Okay. All right. So technology had to catch up a little bit, because I'm sitting here wondering why we would do this to our KIA. And Wally, I mean, it seems crazy, but there wasn't the DNA technology we have now.
No, the science is finally caught up to allow this to happen.
Yeah. All right. So they go in and they exhume the bodies again. What year was this when they went into the Punch Bowl? Ballpark? You don't have to be precise.
I'm not sure of that,
Okay.
Scott.
All right.
If I could, I would like to give you a timeline.
Absolutely. Please
on
do.
how this
Yeah.
all went down.
Sure.
In July of 2011, there was a Navy genealogist that called my sister Ann and myself, explaining and wanting to know if we were the next of kin of Ann Sternisha. Well, being a son and daughter, they asked if we would submit DNA. So we submitted DNA in August of 2011. In 2013, we got our first notification by the Secretary of Defense about digging up and identifying remains of sailors and Marines killed on the U.S. Oklahoma using DNA and dental records. In September of 2013, we had our first meeting in Chicago with JPAC, which stands for Joint Prisoner of War MIA Accounting Command, explaining how they identify the servicemen's remains and the recovery of MIAs. In 2015, I did an interview with Phil Rogers of NBC News. He told me that they were in the process of digging up and identifying the sailors from the Oklahoma.
Wow.
Between 2015 and 2017, we received phone calls, texts, just making sure we were next of kin, we were still alive. And then finally, in February of 2017, I got a phone call from the Navy confirming the positive identification of my uncle.
It's incredible.
Then in February, I called Phil Rogers and let him know, and he was a great help, and he told me how huge a story this was going to be, that the news media and press were going to jump all over it, wanting to do interviews, and politicians would want to be getting involved in it too, because my Uncle Mike was the first serviceman from Illinois that was killed at Pearl Harbor to be identified. In February, I had my first meeting with the Navy. They sent 3 Navy officers and a mortician to my house to make arrangements on how we would retrieve my uncle's remains. And then in April, one of the things I requested from the Navy is that I wanted to go to Hawaii and escort my uncle's remains back. At first they balked, but then they gave in and let me pretty much give me what I requested.
How'd you get out there? Did you fly in a transport?
At first I told them I would do a military hop, and one officer mentioned that they had a plane leaving Milwaukee and I could get on that. But then I told him, I says, I'm not going to drive to Milwaukee. We have 2 airports here in Chicago, O'Hare and Midway. So they did give me, they did fly me on Delta.
Nice.
And I did go to Hawaii. They had a naval officer meet me in Honolulu as my escort. And they took me over to where they identified my uncle's remains, and at the Central Identification Laboratory, which was in the middle of Anderson Air Force Base. And it's pretty secure there because they had those stealth fighters, the F-22 Raptors there. And it's just an amazing building. And they showed me how they go about identifying these remains for DNA. You got to remember, most of these sailors' remains that were taken off the Oklahoma were covered in oil, and each bone had to be cleaned before they can do the DNA. And all of these sailors' remains were mingled and put in one grave, so it was very time-consuming. I did get to meet the genealogist that did the positive identification on my uncle, and it was just an amazing building. When we left Honolulu to come back with his remains, they had a Navy ceremony there, which is very touching. We flew to Atlanta, and there was another naval ceremony there taking place for us. And I also had the honor and privilege. There was a young Navy sailor from Norfolk that got killed in a car crash, and I met his parents. And they asked me to be part of the honor guard, and that really made me feel good that I could participate and be with the Navy honor guard for this young sailor's remains. We left Honolulu, went to O'Hare, and the reception at O'Hare was phenomenal. They used the water cannons. They had the fire department, police department, my family and friends. There had to be over 300 people out there to greet us when we got back. From there, we went around to the other side, and that's where all the news media was, et cetera, et cetera. And when we left O'Hare to go back to Tizek's funeral home, we had the Patriot Guard, state police, and it was very touching. And leaving O'Hare, I was in construction all my life. all of the construction sites we went by, the construction workers all stopped and saluted, and it was very moving.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
We got to the funeral home, and the next day when we had the funeral, and we were leaving to go to St. Ray's Cathedral, the streets were lined with people with American flags. And to me, you know, it was touching and amazing that people that I didn't know would show up just to show support and greet. We went to the funeral. We had the funeral over there at the Cathedral of St. Raymond, and I was amazed at how many people showed up that I didn't know and supported. And all the way from the cathedral out to Abraham Lincoln Cemetery, even out in the country roads, people were standing with flags. The racetrack put my uncle's name on the marquee, just amazing. And when we got to the funeral, or to the cemetery, it was a very touching ceremony. And one thing I requested from the Navy was a flyover. And the only thing that they said, somebody would have to pay for the fuel. Well, that fuel was like $200,000 because the jets had to come from Oceana. I tried to get them to log it as a training mission, but that didn't fly. So one thing I would like to say too is Ryan from TZAX. He was phenomenal for helping me and making all of these arrangements. And I don't know how he did it, but he had a World War II warplane make a couple flyovers while we were under the pavilion there at Abraham Lincoln. And that meant $1 million to me, just to have him do that for my uncle.
Wow. We're talking today to George Sternisha, Vietnam veteran himself and Purple Heart recipient, the nephew of Michael Galajdik, who was the first Illinois resident killed in the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. This is all from our friends at NuMark Credit Union, remembering those who gave their all, the Michael Galajdik story. So let's kind of go back to the remains that you talked about. They were all dumped into, huge mistake, by the way, by our armed forces, but they were involved in a war. I get it. Everybody was dumped into one mass grave, if you will. How much, and I don't mean to be so direct about this, but how much of your uncle was able to be exhumed?
Okay, I got 2 sets of remains from the
Two.
Navy.
Okay.
2. The first one, the initial set, one of the things I told Ryan from TZAX when we got to the funeral home is open that coffin and I want to see what's in there. Because I didn't know, was it a publicity stunt?
So you hadn't seen anything
nothing
in Hawaii? Okay.
No, nothing. So we got there, and what we found when we opened the coffin was just his skull. Now, according to the pathologists and genealogists over at that Central Identification Laboratory, before they will release the remains, it's got to be 60%, and they consider the skull 60%. Oh. So the first remains was only his skull.
Okay.
Now, last July 21, I got another phone call from the Navy saying they identified more of his remains. So I had them shipped back here to the States, and we were fortunate enough where we were able to dig up the original coffin and put these remains in with the skull. And I was very blessed that I could be a part, and Ryan let me do and put the remains all together in the original coffin.
Wow. Wally?
Mark.
It is unreal. I'm in shock. How long did the entire process take? Now, I'm not talking about all the way back to December 7, 1941, but the whole process, how many years to finally get him buried?
It was like 6 years from the first time we were notified in July 2011 until April of 2017, and that's not counting July of 21 when I got the second set of remains.
Okay. Can you give us some more personal information about your Uncle Michael, schools he went to here in town?
Yes, I believe he went to Joliet Township High School.
Okay.
And my mother raised him since he was 13.
Yeah.
And
how did his mother pass away at 50? Just
at age 50,
natural
I
condition?
don't know
Heart
the
attack?
basics behind it.
Okay.
But he worked in the WPA for, I'm not sure, four years before enlisting in the Navy.
And the WPA is what, for those who don't know?
Work Progress Association, I believe.
Okay.
That Franklin Roosevelt started.
Mm-hmm. So he just felt he was going to do his duty.
Yes, and what war looming in Europe at that time with Germany, and then plus with the Japanese. I mean, you had to be a brave individual going in, and surprisingly, he achieved rank very fast, because I don't believe he had 2 years in the Navy before he got killed.
That was my next question, is how long had he actually served? And they probably thought, okay, we get to go to Hawaii. Not much happening out there.
Now, one thing that the Navy mortician did tell me is that he died instantly. They could tell by his skull, the way his teeth were knocked out and the hole in his skull, that they believed that when the torpedo hit where he was at, it knocked him backwards, and he hit a 3-inch pipe. Now, I don't know if it was a oil line or a water line, but they said he definitely did not suffer. It was just instant.
Good. Because I can't imagine those people that drowned and were buried alive. Absolutely horrible. George, I know you thanked some along the way. This is a crazy, crazy story. You'd like to thank some people I know in particular that helped you out. Who are some of those people?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Mary Ann, because she did all of the technical work with the emails and texts. I could never do that.
You made some good demands of the Navy, though, and got your way, George. Yeah. So I'm going to thank you.
And I would also like to thank Ryan from T-Zex Funeral Home, because he was phenomenal. What I couldn't get out of the Navy, he did. And I mean, it was just two great people.
You donated some items that were given to you as well, did you not?
Yes, I did. I had a wooden statue made of a serviceman saluting from a friend of mine from the PTSD group in Chicago Heights, and he brought it over to T-Zex Funeral Home for the wake, and I told my wife, I says, if I take this home, it's going to sit in the basement and collect dust.
Right.
Why not leave it here? So I gave it to T-Zex so they could use it for every serviceman that has their funeral there. The other thing was the Navy recruiting station in Chicago Heights gave me a Navy standard. It's a pole with the Navy flag on. It's about, I guess, 8 foot, 10 foot tall. Now, again, what would I do with it? It would sit in the basement. So I also donated that to T-Zex. So whenever a naval serviceman has his funeral there, they would display this Navy flag in servicemen.
The system that is in place now, George, is probably much better than when you and your wife first started down this road and on this journey several years ago. So I guess as we ask you for some advice on other families that might be going through the same processes, there is potentially a light at the end of the tunnel, one that is very bright now with the technology that is in place.
Yeah, I would say keep the faith and keep praying, because I do believe we will get the remains back. I firmly believe in it. The slogan: "We will not leave anyone behind."
Yeah, incredible. Do you mind, if you would, George, sharing your story a little bit? A Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient. Can you talk about your service?
Yes, I spent a little over 13 months in Vietnam, and my last day in Vietnam, I was at Cam Lo and survived a mortar attack. It was 13 months of combat. I started out as a rifleman in 3rd Squad, 3rd Platoon, and I ended up as a squad leader as 3rd Squad, 3rd Platoon. I still stay in touch with some of the remaining Marines that I was with. We get together every year for a reunion in a different city, and the camaraderie between us is just fantastic. You know, it's something that you just don't break.
Yeah, people don't understand that weren't in a situation like that. I mean, 13 months of hell. You're more than brothers.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to depend on one another and put your trust in one another.
Yeah. Remarkable, Wally. I don't know what else to say from here.
Oh, you know, this whole story started with pulling a flag out. On Flags Out.
Yeah.
In 2017.
Yeah. And you guys got to know each other, and now you're friends.
You know, no, so that's why, you know, if you have an opportunity to go out there, and if you don't because you have to work, etc., over the weekend, they also are going to have a memorial service out there on Monday, Memorial Day.
Right.
And that'll start at, they'll have musical prelude at 11 o'clock, 11:30 is the services. You know, if you can't make any of that stuff, flags and flag out, at least over the weekend, hey, grab the kids, go out there and just take a ride through. Not only that, get out of the car. The weather's going to be nice this weekend. Get out of the car, take a walk, and maybe go over to Section 10.
I was going to ask where we could find George.
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Yeah, where can we find Mike?
Yeah, don't worry. I've called him different names over this last couple of days,
my
too.
Bad.
Michael,
Section 10?
Section 10, 402 or 408.
He's by the Calabarium?
Yeah. Actually, Section 10.
Section 10.
When you go back about 12 rows, he's on the very end. He's on, and he was. Matter of fact, he was the last marker in that in that one row.
Okay.
And because there's a couple thousand in each section.
Oh wow.
You know, when you go out there, each section has a couple thousand veterans. But Michael's in Section 10, around 400 is his number. And he's on the very end. Okay. Matter of fact, whenever I go out and visit other people I know that are out there, since 2017, Michael's always been one of my stops, you know.
Sure.
And what's also interesting on Flags In, Flags Out, on the day of Flags Out, you're going to find a different cemetery out there. You're going to find coins left on markers. There's a history behind that, too. We could talk about that if you want. You're going to find, you know, decks of cards. You find letters, you know. No, I mean, where people have come out and paid their respect to the veterans. And also this year, just recently, you had they just interned Gerald Helms, who was found in the Netherlands. That was another story.
Amazing story.
It's another amazing story.
Yes, somebody was digging. They were going to put a trench line or something like that, and they find him.
Yeah, they found the remains.
Dog tags.
Dog tags. And he is now at rest. I think he's in Section 18. You know, if you go to the Abraham Lincoln website, you can find, they have grave locator on there online. So if you are interested, and if you have a family member that's out there, you don't know where they're at, you could do that ahead of time. They do have that capability at their little welcome station they have when you first pull in. You can go in there and put it into, but ahead of time you can go online and find grave locations.
Okay. George, I got a couple more for you. You just went on the honor flight last week.
Yes.
So what was that like?
That was awesome. That's just an amazing. Every veteran should get a chance to experience it. You know, I felt when we got back from Washington D.C. at Midway, this was the homecoming we never got back in 1967. I mean, they take such good care of you. It's just amazing. I mean, you have a guardian with you from the day you just step into the midway till the time you get back. When you get back, it's remarkable. I mean, they must have had every sailor from the Great Lakes Naval Base there to greet you. When you get off the plane and go through the tunnel to get into the airport, they had Chicago firemen on each side greeting you, shaking your hand, bands playing, bagpipes, and you're walking through the airport. People are cheering, waving flags, and for me, it was exceptionally special because I didn't think any of my family was going to be there, and as we're walking, a couple of veterans told me, "Hey, you got a fan club," and I'm thinking, "What are you talking about?" And then the girl that I had as a guardian, she was a real sweetheart. She says, "I thought you told me your wife wasn't coming." And I said to her, "I says, what are you talking about?" And she's at church. She says, "No, look over there." I look over there, and my grandkids are there waving signs with my picture and cover on. And oh man, it was just awesome. I didn't know whether I wanted to cry or what. It was just amazing.
That was the best surprise of all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Remarkable. You also like to share your story with students at Lockport Township High School, where you come in and speak to them about Vietnam. Talk about that experience.
Yes, I've been doing that for 6 years with a couple friends of mine that were in Vietnam. And we've been doing it now for 6 years. The Vietnam War is an elective over at Lockport High School, and the teacher there, Mike Zaworski, is very good with putting this class on. And the kids are phenomenal. They ask good questions like, "What did you think of the protesters? How were you treated when you came home? What was it like to be in Vietnam?" The kids are really good. I donated 782 gear so they could get the feel. I gave them a helmet and a flak jacket so the kids can actually put this on and get the feeling of what we had to wear and what it was like.
And they all probably said, "Gosh, you guys had to fight in this heavy stuff."
Yes.
In the heat.
In the heat. And it's just a great class over there for the kids.
Yeah, and I know Mike puts on a big night during basketball season as well, Veterans Night.
Yes, he does.
That I'm sure
does
you're
a great
involved
job
in.
over there.
Yep, no doubt about that. So, I don't know where we go from here. Wally, thanks
Well-
for just bringing everybody's hearts up into their throats today, and I mean that sincerely. Thank you.
Scott, could I share one more story with
Absolutely.
you?
Please do, George.
Okay, while I was at this Central Identification Laboratory, we had to have MPs take us there, and the guy in charge was a retired Army captain from Vietnam. So when you have something in common, you get a little bit more.
Oh, yes, you do.
So he escorted me personally. So he took me into this one room. It was like a museum. And what they do when they go and they dig up the remains of servicemen from Korea, China, wherever, and they bring back any artifacts that they find. Could be a dog tag, coffee cup, a boot, rifle. Well, anyway, and they put them in this here room, and they make a note from where it came. Well, the one thing that caught my mind and stays with me was a piece of an aircraft wing. I believe it was a B-24 bomber that went down in New Guinea in 1944. And they found the remains, brought them back, and they brought a piece of this wing back. And on this wing were the signatures of the women that built it. They signed their names, and you could still read their names from 1944.
Wow.
Because the women back during World War II, like Rosie the Riveter,
Yeah.
they were the ones building these here planes.
That's amazing. And you got to see that.
Yes, yes. and they showed me the laboratory where they do all of these identification of bones, and there had to be 100 steel operating tables per se, and you'd see a leg bone on one table, you see a skull on the other table, and you see a rib bone on another table. And as they were identifying these bones, first they clean them, and then they do a DNA and match it to the sailor who it belongs to. And the Oklahoma had like 400 and some sailors on there that they had to identify. So it's a long process.
Yeah, it certainly is. It is a long process, but a process well worth every bit of hard work that you put into it. And this is probably, George, more special for you because of your service.
Yes. Yeah,
you understand.
Because I had a better understanding. I know what it's like when someone loses a loved one. It brings closure to the family.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel sorry for the people that can't get or don't know about what happened.
Right. Absolutely. Does this also, and I don't want to get controversial here, and I don't mean this to draw any, comments out of you or anything like that, but does all the work that they put into finding your uncle, does this give you a little bit more faith in our government and the armed forces because of what happened to you guys when you came home? Maybe not to their fault or anything like that, but we talk a little bit about how sometimes veterans are neglected, and with the issues right now with PTSD, and is the government doing enough? Does this make you feel better though about how veterans overall are treated?
Absolutely. I mean, they could have did nothing. Right. They could have left my uncle's remains over there and did nothing, and
nobody would have known a difference.
Nobody would have known the difference.
No.
And one of the other things too, when I talked to this genealogist, she says that sometimes it takes 2 to 4 years to find next of kin, and when they do, they don't want nothing to do with it. So that's 2 to 4 years that they've wasted. They say leave the remains there. But this was my mother's wish, that bring her brother's remains back, and I am glad that I was able to fulfill it.
Scott, I mean, it truly is an amazing story. And also what we were doing at NuMark, we've created an honor wall this year.
Okay.
You can actually go online. You don't have to be one of our members. If you have somebody who was killed in action, there's a format there. You can include a photo.
Okay.
You can visit it right now. There's a couple stories there. This is not just something we want to do this year. I believe Carrie says we want to continue this into the next Memorial Day. Next
tradition for us.
It's going to be a new tradition for us.
Yeah, Matt, go ahead. Give us the real scoop on that, would you please, on the honor wall?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're, again, like we've been talking about this honor wall on the NuMark website. It's a brand new tradition we're trying to start. Where it's our opportunity to share some stories of some of our fallen heroes who either went MIA or KIA and in battle somewhere, whether it's World War II, Vietnam, or anywhere else. And so this is our way to honor those who really paid it all for us here in America. The page is NuMarkCU.org/honor wall, or Memorial Day honor wall, I believe. And you can click there right now. You can see there's a slider that has highlights from stories of soldiers. It has their name, their rank, where they served. It has any awards they may have won. It's just got a lot of good information about them.
Cool.
And this is our way, too, to make sure that their stories aren't forgotten. They're gone, but they're never forgotten. We want to do everything we can to honor them. And we want to encourage anybody listening, if you have a family member or a friend, or if you just know of somebody who went KIA or MIA, that this would be a good way to honor them. So if you want to visit NuMarkCU.org/Memorial Day Honor Wall, that would be a fantastic way for you to share that with the whole world.
It's a really good idea. And you do other things, too, throughout the course of the year, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we work a lot with veterans at NuMark. We really, I believe almost every one of our board members is is a veteran of some sort.
That's awesome.
If not all of them, nearly all of them. And we work a lot with veterans. We do a lot of cool things for them. There's a lot of cool things we can do to help them at NuMark that I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty or try to be a salesman of today. But if you go to the NuMark website, you can and type in veteran, you can find things. But of course, we also are big supporters of the Wreaths Across America program. Each December on National Wreaths Across America Day, the Wreaths Across America organization honors fallen veterans with wreath-laying ceremonies across the nation. I know we talked about that at the beginning a bit, and we love to sponsor those wreaths. Members and non-members are able to come into any one of our locations, and they can sponsor a wreath right from there. We're also, starting tomorrow, we're doing something we do every year for Memorial Day. We're selling little American flags at our branches, and every dollar that you spend on an American flag will go immediately to sponsoring wreaths. So that's a cool way to do it too, and you get a little flag out of it. And that'll be from May 25th through June 1st. So if anybody wants to come in and buy a flag to help support Wreaths Across America, and you can also make a larger donation there, or you can go to wreathsacrossamerica.org to make a donation. We like to sponsor at Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, but you can make a donation to any cemetery. Sure. There's no limit on that at all.
Okay, good.
So, yeah.
All right, well, good. A lot going on. Again, you can find out more information by going to NuMarkCU.org. That's NuMark Credit Union. Wally, thank you. 8:30, show up for the informational meeting, 9 o'clock on Friday, and then the flag out. What time on Tuesday?
Flag out is 8:30. Is 8:30. It's random. You just go out to the site.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday, that is correct. On Friday, they actually going to start with the instructions at 9. But yeah, show up at 8:30. Maybe a little camaraderie. You know, it's like that.
You got it. All right, Wally. Thank you for sharing your friend with us today.
Oh,
Matt, thank you, and George, it was my honor, my friend. Thank you and Wally, thank you for your service.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, gentlemen.